favor.
Yeah.
Blue is playing an aggro deck with a lot of 1 power creatures for 1 and 2 powers for 2 into Supreme Verdicts. It's very hard for them to successfully aggro before a Supreme Verdict. But in the post-war games, Blue gets to play this tempo game plan here.
Though it does look like Shioi has a pretty commanding advantage here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so what Schneider's able to do is he does have a Bident of Thassa going, and it makes all his creatures into must-answer threats. Shioi hasn't, like, the mono-blue player tries to make it so that the blue player never gets to have Sphinx's Revelation in the matchup. But right now, Shioi does have Aetherling, which may be enough. We've come to this pretty late, and some of the build-up to this can be pretty great.
There's a lot of jockeying for early position, and what I enjoy about watching the games here is that often these very different strategies manifest themselves in the post-board games. And the blue-white control deck can sometimes be served by becoming very aggressive post-board, because all that mono blue is trying to do is, play a threat and protect it, make Supreme Verdict a much less effective card, and try to fight it over Sphinx's Revelation. But that sometimes means the pacing of the game is really slow, and a random Aetherling, for example, Archangel Thune, can be really powerful.
Right. We see there Jace minus there, he gave Schneider Mutavault and Tidebinder Mage. Schneider had already made his land for the turn, unfortunately, so... No, sorry, he hadn't made land. He got to play the Mutavault, and he tapped to make Tidebinder. Shioi will use the Aethling to take out Jace, then blink it out on his turn so it's back as a blocker, and go ahead and plus his own Jace.
Now, Andrew still has a pretty healthy life total here, I would imagine, from Last Breaths, but it's going to be really hard for him to beat this Aetherling.
Yeah, well, once Aetherling's down, Mono Blue does not have tools to knock it off the table. And this is a tough spot. Aethling will always blank an attacker of Andrew's.
And once the blue Devotion player gets behind on the board like this, so many of the draws post-board become so bad because your counter spells aren't helping you catch back up. And so many of your threats are individually anemic.
Yeah, once blue-white turns the corner, it can be pretty hard for mono blue to win. Up until that point, I usually feel like it's like, it feels a lot like blue's playing a Delver Secret style strategy where it's getting a 1 or 2 drop down and then just holding up counter spells to never let the control deck, turn and start playing their big spells. The fact that Shioi did set up a board where he can resolve Aetherling does show that maybe the game has gotten away from Schneider.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew there making a desperation attack on the previous turn, trying to draw a card off that Bident. Shioi had an Azorius trying to put the creature back on top of the deck. And it's going to be really hard for Andrew to recover from this.
Just drawing too many cards here. He cast Divination, minus to Jace. He's drawn 4 cards already this turn.
And we know the top card of Andrew's deck is a 2/2 for 2.
Yeah, Tidebinder go. And it seems like Andrew knows the writing here. At this point, Shioi is winning the race thanks to Aetherling. And remember, Andrew doesn't have any way to interact with it outside of maybe he may have boarded in some Rapids if he was worried about Archangel, but he doesn't have, once he starts losing the race, he doesn't have many plays available.
And the mono blue Devotion deck is so much less streamlined in the post-board games. It takes away a lot of its aggressive elements. Out of necessity, it can't beat the Supreme Verdict playing the game that way. So it does play a much slower game, leaves it very susceptible to things like this.
All right, and there you go. Shioi Yim moves up to 6-1. Andrew Schneider down to 5-2. Both these players with 5 wins already are into day 2. Shioi trying to get his record as high as he can, though, to maybe make a top 8.
And not surprising to see Andrew off to a really strong start. Again, 4 rounds of Legacy to start the day. A blue-red Delver aficionado, a deck that I think is just wildly unplayable, but Andrew has had so much success playing it on the Open Series that I consider it to be an aberration. I've never seen anyone else win with this deck, but Andrew is a dominant Legacy player with blue-red Delver.
Yeah, and mono blue, like